here. Welcome to the inaugural audio for PolitiJim. I don't know where this is going to go. I don't want to be locked into a weekly or daily radio show. I can't do the great stuff Mr. L Tavern does with his cool bar effects, but I've been wanting to recently to do more than just the writing and rant audibly, so you get to hear PolitiJim live in person. Today, I want to talk about looking at the scope of what's coming up in Pennsylvania and Rick Santorum and Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich and Ron Paul. And it's clear to me, Newt has not, someone had commented on PolitiJim that Gingrich was getting momentum. I don't yet see it in the polls. I pray that that's true, but I don't see it. And so the reality we have is unless there's something to propel him, a debate, a complete catastrophe, verbally or otherwise by one of the other two candidates, it is what it is. And right now it's a battle between Romney and the other guy, Vesti. And so, as many know, obviously from the series of nuts articles and the comparisons of Romney and Santorum and Gingrich, that I just think it would be an absolute disaster if Rick Santorum was the GOP nominee for all kinds of reasons. The inevitability of Mitt Romney being carried by the press could be similarly destructive if Mitt Romney was to win Pennsylvania. So for that, I'm encouraging my Pennsylvania friends to vote for Rick Santorum. I know someone will take that clip out and say, "See, Jim Ballou endorsed him." No, I think he's a lying, hypocritical, disingenuous brother in Christ who I think it totally embarrasses not only Christians, Catholics, conservatives, but the entire GOP party. And the more I learn about him, the angrier I am, both that he continues to wear his religion on a sleeve while he continues to lie and just be as politically spineless and convenient as he can be, and the people that just support him blindly. I am beside myself with wondering how this can happen. But the important thing is we get to a brokered convention where anything can happen. I've had to hire quite a few people in my life, presidents of other companies. I've had to hire very high-level people. At one point in one of my companies, my management team was the former chairman of one of the biggest banks in the world, the former founder and executive of two of the biggest apparel companies in the country. And when I evaluate what these people were going to do to run a new company or take over an existing one, you look for certain elements to see if they can do the job. You don't take if it's a clothing company, you don't take a guy that has dressed really well or written magazine articles for 25 years about how to dress well and assume that they know how to manage the accountants, manage the fabric buyers and the cutters, manage the technology pieces of how to scale the models to make all these different models of things that happen. They don't know how to raise money. They don't know. There's so many other components other than writing about how people look in clothes that make a clothing business. It is a business, and you can make the finest threads, ever seen on the planet, but if you don't know how to market it, if you don't know how to make sure that you're creating a profit, all business people know this. And so here we are electing a president who is going to be a military leader. He's got to be a strategist. He's got to be a teacher. He's got to be an encourager. He's got to both stand firm on things like Ronald Reagan did and tear down this wall kind of attitude, and at the same time be able to work with people of the other party. We will not have, look at how it is today. People lionize, and Paul Ryan and Alan West are great guys, don't get me wrong, but they have capitulated and caved time and time again on major legislation. Even our conservatives are not strong-willed leaders who are seeing clearly of what to do. Paul Ryan, he voted for Medicaid Part D, although I could, maybe give him a pass on that because they all thought it was going to be projected to be a much less expensive issue. But when he didn't hold the line with Jim DeMint, when he totally capitulated and went with the Bonnier bill, it proved to me that he had no balls. And the bottom line is whoever GOP gets elected, whether it's Newt Gingrich, Sarah Palin, Jeb Bush, God forbid, or Romney or whoever, the problem is that they're going to end up with a GOP that are basically guys that go along. Most of them are not independent leaders. And my big concern is that we're hiring a guy that doesn't know how to do one or two of these things. This isn't a beauty contest. This isn't American Idol. And why we can't intelligently look at the qualifications of what these guys did. So when I'm hiring, say, a president of a clothing company, I don't just hire a guy, like I said, that wrote about it. I say, well, what other clothing companies have you run? What have you actually done? And they, said, well, maybe you get a guy that ran a small one, but it was incredibly profitable and successful and got bought by another company. And you go, okay, well, that guy figured some stuff out along the way. Maybe you've got a guy that's only been in accounting for a big company his entire life. And, as you evaluate that, you say, well, okay, let's say he ran Levi's clothing. And, but he was the accountant. He never really learned how to source fabric. How do you deal with all the artsy fartsies that, you got to deal with on the marketing side and in the culture of the clothing company. He didn't have to, he maybe interfaced with the operational guys that actually ran the plants, but, had the guy ever actually understood how a plant worked? Did he understand the meat and potatoes of what happens? It's great that he can go get a bank loan if it's needed for the company. It's good, but that's not leading. That's not running a company. And the guy may have been CFO of Levi's for 20 years, but just because he's been there doesn't mean that he's qualified to be a manager, to be an executive, to lead and inspire a company and figure out, how do we break through Wranglers and everybody else and be the company to create a better pair of jeans at a cheaper price that people think are cool that they go buy. It's a whole different proposition. So here we are on the presidential campaign, and we are at a place where we're about ready to nominate a guy that was a pretty bad failure at the 2 years that he actually was doing something similar, Mitt Romney. People want to slam the Olympics thing because it only was profitable because of the government bailout. And, I'm going to give him a pass on the Olympics. He still came in there. He still got things done. He still cut costs. They started paying for the pizza at the boardroom. He put in practices of capitalism. I'll give Mitt Romney. And if the way to get that done was to go get government money, from the view of the Olympics, he did a good job. It shows him that he had no qualms about making it work. But when you're in business, it's not illegal to go get money. It's not immoral. So I give him credit as being an executive. Maybe not the one I'd hire, but he's been a good executive on the Olympics, coming in and doing that. The stuff at Bain, he was a vulture capitalist. I don't think it hurts him in terms of running a country or leading or inspiring people. I think it hurts him in electability. I don't think he can make that narrative work against Obama. But when you look at Romney and say, well, can he lead? You look when was he else in government? He was in government he tried against Kennedy to become a better liberal than Kennedy. It didn't work. And this time now he's, when he was in Massachusetts, according to Powerline's endorsement, they said, basically he gave up trying to be fiscally conservative after 2 years. And he went back and restored a lot of the cuts that had actually made government more efficient in Massachusetts' third year. In his fourth year, he was gone 220 out of 365 days. If you take away weekends and holidays, that means he was probably gone for something like 85 or 90% of his entire business. Now, what person has a job and essentially phones it in for their entire last year do you think is a good executive and cares about running a government? And he's campaigning. He wanted to be president. And so screw the people of Massachusetts. He's just going to go ahead and use his first 2 years as an example of what he did. And he's over. And when he did do his 4 years in a fairly good economy, certainly good compared to what we have now, he was 47 out of 50, and he would have been lower had it not been for Hurricane Katrina. So the guy was pathetic. House prices rose, under his jurisdictions, but the only economic factor of improvement in the Massachusetts economy. He did kind of get a balanced budget, but he was the architect of Romneycare, put that team together, forged it, that created a $2 trillion liability. And a lot of his cuts that were temporary, had to be dealt with after he left. And so he didn't create a mechanism of government. He was a great tactical manager. He's the guy that, the local Burger King is bleeding. We need him to get in there and turn it around, or we're going to shut down the shop. And he did a pretty good job of making some good things. But did he learn how to expand to 4 or 5 other franchises? Did he learn to do that? No. And I think I saw yesterday on a YouGov poll that only 11% of the GOP would be excited if he was elected. And Obama may be so bad that probably could be okay. But he's got to excite. If he can't excite the people in his own party, how is he going to excite the people he needs, the other 20-25% of the electorate he needs outside of the party? I don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening. So, anyway, for that reason, and because Paul Weyrich, the amazing conservative founder who founded Moral Majority, the Heritage Foundation, Free Congress Foundation, a number of others, amazing guy, died a couple years ago. If you go to PolitiJim, you can find excerpts of the interview. You go to NPR, you can see an entire interview he did back in the 90s with NPR on what he thought about Newt Gingrich. But he had actually endorsed Romney in 2008, and when he learned that, and he endorsed him over Mike Huckabee, and when he learned that he didn't know much about Mitt Romney when he endorsed him, it seems. And when he learned that Mitt Romney had, I'll get this out, I promise. When he learned that he had lied and had used executive orders to force Massachusetts into the gay marriage situation against the advice of the former governor, very popular William Weld, who had still huge reputation in Massachusetts over his state attorney general, and many other, both Democrats and Republicans, who said, no, we don't need this. I don't know what the polls were at the time, but it's irrelevant. A conservative doesn't go beyond things to make something like that happen. They resist it. They say, I disagree with this. But he didn't fight it. He facilitated it. And then he lied about it and pretended that his Supreme Court had commanded him to do it, which was an absolute outright lie. And Paul Weyrich said, now on top of this, by the way, I don't know if Paul knew that, or like I know the guy, Mr. Weyrich, I don't know if he knew this, but we also have direct evidence in print that he told the lobbyists of the abortion lobby, he told the lobbyists of the environmental wackos and the gay movement, essentially that he would run for president, he would become a GOP president. Now, this is since he left in 2006. He would be a GOP president, and he would be the stealth candidate for their cause in the GOP. Now, I got to tell you, it's one thing for someone to change their mind. It's one thing to become pro-life. I definitely was pro-choice when I was in high school. I didn't know anything. I was an idiot. And it wasn't until I had my own child and I kind of started thinking, well, gosh, the day before that child's born, it's a complete human being. So what's the difference the day before and the day after a child's born in terms of their development, their brain power, their breathing oxygen inside the womb? There's nothing different. It is a baby. It is alive. It's not dead. It's alive inside that womb. And the explosion inside of my, little bird brain just suddenly said, oh my God, this is a real human life. And so I understand those kind of things. And I'll be honest, I think that Romney may have had a conversion in that area. But if I went back and I had told somebody, no, I'm now pro-life. But previous to that, I'd said, I'm going to pretend I'm, before I really did become pro-life, 2 years before that, if I said, you know what, I'm going to pretend to have an epiphany and become pro-life and run for government. Well, now you don't know. There's no way to test it. There's no way to know for sure. And in the case of where our country is, with so many problems, so many bad things happening, we just can't afford it. We can't afford to put someone in there. But that's a rant for another time. So, Paul Weyrich, back to my story. Paul Weyrich was so profoundly shaken by the knowledge of what Romney had done that he threatened, he said he would lead a social conservative revolt from the GOP party and if McCain selected Mitt Romney as a vice president. That's how, he was willing to split the party over Romney being a vice president, not even a president. That's how egregious Romney's sins were in his eyes. And he said what I had been saying all along is we should have gone with Huckabee. He was closer to us on every single matter. And it wasn't just Weyrich. Right to Life endorsed Romney. How they could endorse him, I have no idea, over Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee may have a lot of problems. He may not have been the most conservative governor of any state, including Arkansas. But the man was a preacher. He was pro-life. There was nobody in the race that was more pro-life than he was. And Weyrich said we should have all gotten behind Huckabee. He was the most conservative guy in the race. So Rick Santorum endorsed, Rick Santorum never recanted up until he started running about his endorsement of Romney. And Weyrich never said that Romney was the most conservative guy. He reluctantly endorsed him. Not so with Santorum. When Santorum decided to endorse Romney, he put his entire credibility on the line, saying he is a true conservative and a man of principle who has who believes in what we do, meaning the social conservatives. And it shows a lack of credibility. It shows Santorum's willing to say anything for what people need to hear at that moment. So, both these guys just are disasters in my book. But coming up here, the play for me, were I running the political universe, and that has been a request outstanding to God that He has still not answered for me. But my request is that we at least delay the game, pull the game out long enough, and to get that done, we need to stop Romney. And then if that means, like Sarah Palin said back in South Carolina, if I was a South Carolinian, I'd vote for Newt. Now we know she really did vote for Newt. Wish she would have done that before. That'll be my fifth rant that I'll do later on. But, we have to stop Romney, so voting for Santorum to get it done is probably the way to do it. Hey, thanks for listening to me. This is way longer. I was going to make this 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I can't talk quick. But give me some feedback. Let me know if this sucks. Let me know if you want to hear another one of these. Let me know if you just want it to be shorter, maybe 5 minutes.